Hey guys, welcome to this new growth group season that we're jumping into. My name is Jess.
And I'm Gabe, and we are both very excited to have you in a group this season. It's a special time. It's a special season because our whole church is doing something together called The Legends Behind the Legends. We're actually doing something called Legendary Living. That's a weekend teaching series. This group session is designed to be a complement to that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be talking about the legends behind the legends here for 8 weeks. And there's also a 40-day devotional that you're going to find out about. But we want to give you the best possible experience over the next 8 weeks. So Jess is going to share some tips as we get started in this experience.
Yeah, and you're engaging because you want to get the most out of this experience. And so the number one best thing that you can do is show up. So we've got 8 weeks in a row. Just commit to being here when you can be here and really develop those relationships. I think that's one of the best things that you can do to really start developing relationships is to show up every week. The second thing that should put you at ease, I hope, and that is our high value and growth groups of confidentiality.
For sure.
Remember that and trust that what you say in your group stays in your group.
Yeah.
And you can bring whatever it is that you've got going on in your heart, in your mind, and in your life. You don't feel required to share, but whatever you want to share, you want to make sure that you do, because these people are here to be friends and to support you in your walk. Number 3, participate. And it feels like a no-brainer, but I've been there where I've sat on the chair and I've had an idea or a thought in my mind that I wanted to share, but my heart was beating in my ears, and it took a second to build up the courage to share that. I promise you, once you share that thought or idea, somebody else is going to connect, and it's going to build that other person up just like it's building you up. So make sure that you share those thoughts and ideas and participate in the conversation. The second piece of participation is for you to find your place.
Yeah.
And so that might look like committing to bringing snacks one week. It could look like asking your growth group leader if they need help with anything. Maybe they've got a full load and you can send out reminder emails or something. But find the way that you can contribute to and serve the people in your group. And I promise, if you do those three things, then this next 8 weeks is going to be a win for you.
Absolutely. Now, I got a question for you as we kick off this night's theme, this day's theme.
Yeah.
You ready for it?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever had to take a stand for something when everyone else seemed to be going the other direction?
That's such a great question. And one thing pops into my mind, and it is an insane experience that I had in middle school. In a debate exercise that we did.
Okay.
And this
middle school. I mean, that's scary just to say the words middle school. So I can't even wait to hear this.
It's not it's not a strong point for me in the first place. Like, I was incredibly shy, but we had to do this, and so we were challenged to come up with 2 standpoints in a debate. And I can't even remember really what the topic was, but I think it was racially charged or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, I got this. This is a no-brainer. Everybody knows that this is the right way the right side to be on. I was up against this dude that knew that he was standing up for the wrong thing ethically, but he came to the mic with such a powerful argument that he defeated me.
Oh, wow.
And I was so deflated and so discouraged because I was like, I know I'm right. I just don't know how to argue it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the struggle, right? Is to be able to stand up for truth and to stand up for those positive things and hopefully win. But I don't know. That's the struggle, right?
That's the struggle. Yeah. Well, we're going to be talking about that actually in this lesson. And so we know that standing for truth is hard, but it's easier when you're not alone.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I was standing up there by myself against another person, but how many times have I stood up for something and had a group of people around me cheering me on or affirming me in that situation and been able to end up on the positive side of that equation? It's a big fat deal, right?
Yeah, it is. Well, let's talk a little bit about the focus for this lesson, which is, we talked on the weekend about Daniel. In this lesson, we're talking about the legends behind the legend, which was Daniel's friends. He had 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the time and place that they were in, because that's really relevant to what was going on for their situation. And that was that the nation of Israel had been taken captive by the Babylonians. And Nebuchadnezzar was the ruler who led that charge. They captured the Israelites. They took them to Babylon. And the book of Daniel that we're studying was written in the context of Israel's exile or timeout. I always like to think of it like they were in the penalty box. In Babylon in the 6th century BC. It was a period when Judah's leaders, including young nobles like Daniel, were taken captive after the conquest of Jerusalem. And this was the dominant world power. Babylon, very, very powerful. Known for its wealth, learning, and idolatry. And it sought to assimilate conquered peoples into its culture, not unlike our culture wants to do. Everybody should be assimilated, We should all believe the same thing. We should all, and it's usually some cultural version of the answer to a question, like something racially charged or whatever. And so, we're being taught that we should all think a certain way. And the Jews were stripped of their temple, their homeland. I mean, it was really a challenging time, and they faced the challenge of maintaining faith in God in a culture that totally didn't support that, which might ring a bell for all of us who are alive right now, who are following Jesus and alive. And so I want to just read a couple of verses from Daniel chapter 3, which says, "You issued a decree requiring all the people to bow down and worship the gold statue when they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and other musical instruments." This is somebody talking to the king, going like, hey, you wanted everybody to bow down. And it says, that decree also states that those who refuse to obey must be thrown into a blazing furnace. All right. If you're somebody who grew up in church, you already know where we're going with this. If this is new, just listen. But there are some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you've put in charge of the province of Babylon. They pay no attention to you, your majesty. They refuse to serve your gods and do not worship the gold statue you have set up. And so that's the dilemma that we're talking about here is, standing up for something that you believe is right. The problem is there were great consequences. And these young men, by the way, were probably teenagers, we're taught. The history would say they're probably teenagers, and they were trained to serve in the king's palace. So in this case, the pressure wasn't just political, and this was cultural, this was spiritual pressure. These guys, their whole identity was being challenged, and that's the dilemma that they were facing, that we're talking about in this lesson.
In the scripture, it actually says that their Hebrew names were Hananiah, and that means God is gracious. Mishael, am I saying that right? Who is like God is what his name means, and Azariah, the Lord helps. And those were their Hebrew names, but as they were assimilated into this new culture, they actually received new names, right? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's how we know them. And I can't even imagine what that'd be like, right?
Yeah, your name got taken away. Yeah,
like taken. And it's such a significant part of who you are, right? So even their identity was being challenged.
Almost makes me think of like those movies where somebody's name gets taken away, they get given a number because they're in a prison camp or something. So it totally disregards their identity.
No kidding. I think one of the most amazing things out of this story, this is one of my favorite stories in the Old Testament, is Daniel and then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, is that they stood together. It kind of goes back to that idea of being in a debate and standing alone. And what that visually makes me think of is a friend, Mike, talked about doing Hood to Coast, and he shared his experience when he was running by himself at night.
Hood to Coast, by the way, if you're not from the Portland area, is a beast of a relay, right?
Yeah. And when you're running by yourself at night, like you can run, 5 minutes feels like 2 hours. And you to just build up the will to just continue to take the next step. Every single one of your steps feels heavier and heavier. But if you have that van pulling up behind you of your teammates who are with you and they're cheering you on, then 5 minutes actually feels like 1 second, And so
true.
Yeah. So being able to surround yourself or have brothers or sisters like that who are running with you, you guys are all on the same team and aligned and moving in that same direction. You can support each other even in those circumstances when you're maybe saying, I have been aligned to this, but maybe I'm sliding a little bit, they can pull you back in and help you to stay aligned. So it's so much easier to do life together when you're in a community of people of like-mindedness.
Yeah, it really, really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were facing real consequences.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that for a sec?
Yeah, real consequences. So we go back and we look at that scripture, and it talks about this furnace system. And the furnace system was real. And the picture that they paint in Daniel is that the furnaces were so hot that the guards that took them to throw them into the fire actually died.
Yeah.
So when we think about that system and the consequences, like it was a real system. It was used for smelting and brick making. It wasn't a metaphorical threat. And then we see that picture that they paint. That's really intimidating.
It so is. And I don't know that, I mean, I can't really relate in many ways to that sort of threat on my life for faith. Maybe at some point in my life, I will have to face some sort of choice like that. And I would hope that I'll be ready for it.
Yeah.
But I can definitely say that I've faced a lot of consequences for maintaining faithfulness to God or challenges in that whole process. And that's really what we're all talking about is, when you think about your faith, how do you stand up for what's right when there's pressure to conform? That might look like, something different. Might be conforming at work. It might be cutting in corners on something. Might be cheating on your taxes. It might be, there's all these things that, we might be faced to do. Social pressure in schools or neighborhoods. In our day and age, cultural messages that challenge our faith. And, how do you stand up for what's right in a way that honors God?
Yeah.
Where in this case, every human would have understood, guys, we know you won't mean it in your heart. Just bow down so you're alive after this.
That's a question that I ask myself on a regular basis. If am I gonna cut corners if I'm actually threatened? That reminds me of the scripture, and we talk about this idea at Westside all the time, and I love it whenever you mention it. But Jeremiah 29:7 says, "And work for the peace and prosperity of the city where I sent you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, for its welfare will determine your welfare." And I think through this whole story, even the message on Sunday, we can see these boys doing this.
Yeah.
They're investing. They're in a situation that's not ideal, right? But they are committed to doing what it is that they need to do, even in leadership. And not sabotage the well-being of the place that they are, but there are things that they will not sacrifice, and they know that they won't bow down to a statue. They will only bow down to their God. I think it brings up the question to me of how do you identify what those truths are in those situations, and then how do you stand up to them? So culturally today, what that would make me think of is I've worked in the corporate world, and in the corporate world was told for so many years, it is absolutely unacceptable for you to talk about your faith in this place. So what does it look like for me to stand up for truth and not sabotage or buck the system per se, in a positive way?
Yeah, finding those times where you can talk about your faith without dishonoring your employer, or creating that kind of confusion, but still being a person of faith at your workplace.
Exactly.
Yeah. Really important.
Or what does it look like if you found Jesus, but your maybe family members or friends aren't there? What does that look like to live out that life?
Because they're still expecting you to do the same things and be the same person that you were before. And that often is a big disappointment to the friends and family of somebody who comes to Christ. It's like, oh, you've changed.
Yeah.
And
frankly, it can be a disappointment to you too, because you're used to having a certain kind of relationship, and you have to let something go in order to be honoring to God. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where the principle that we're talking about here is that when you stand on truth with others, you don't stand alone.
Yeah.
Because Daniel was in the story too, but he wasn't even in the furnace.
Right.
And so he must have been incredibly encouraged by the faith and the courage of his friends to go, oh, God is on our side.
Yeah.
Keep reading the story. It gets really good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, whatever furnace it is that you might be facing, just remember that God still shows up. We see that happening in this story. And the more that you follow Jesus and the more that you surround yourself with those people, you get to experience that yourself. In your group, you guys are going to be talking about what it looks like to stand together. You're going to be talking about what's hard and where you need other people to stand with you and where you can serve and stand with other people yourself. Remember that legendary living isn't about never facing trials. That's a misnomer, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
We can have an expectation that we're going to face trials, but it is about standing firm in the middle of them together. So have a great conversation in your group, and we'll see you next time.